Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. It's Corrine. I hope you've all been having a great day and hoping you're starting to start. Hope you're starting to see some spring coming into your area. So today what I'm going to be doing is we're going to be playing with Lavinia Stamps again. The last couple of videos that I've put out have been with Lavinia Stamps. This is the design that I'm going to be working with today or recreating-ish, okay? The first one that you would have seen was, sorry, trying to get this in frame, turn it around. This design here, which was using an element that was floating. So we created our background and then we used an element that was floating. So we didn't have to ground it at all and then added a little bit of depth and dimension. So that was class number one. Which I taught to a group of women this past weekend. And so this was class number one. And then we did, the last time we were together, after I recorded a whole video, this ended up being the second one when I had to re-record. Yeah, so this one, we used a fairy that was grounded and we created a ground and we had some plant life and things like that. This was using a background that was already created. So I didn't have to go through and do all of the inking to create this pink sky and things like that. I used a piece of paper that already had a lot of the design done on it. All I needed to do was add my fairies and the details and everything to really bring it to life. This was supposed to be the second class. That's what I did on the YouTube. But I actually ended up stepping it up a little bit and taught this class, which as you can see, something in the background. So there's something in the foreground, something in the background, some more hills and things like that. So today, because I kind of skipped a step, this was supposed to be the class. So you guys have access to this video already, so you can create similar using your grounding techniques and everything like that. This is level 2, if you will. Today, we're going to film level 3 because I kind of did this class live, and now some people might actually want to be able to recreate it and try and remember the things that I said. So here's what class number 3 is going to be. Okay, so that's what we're going to start with. So today I'm going to be starting with a sheet of paper. This is going to go on I think these are A7 cards. So it's a 5 by 6.5. So I've cut this down to 5 3/4 by 6 1/4. Sorry, 4 3/4 by 6 1/4. And it just came out of this, like, look how pretty this paper is. Sorry, get that in shot there. There we go. So look at how pretty this paper is. I just love it. But it came out of this pad of 15 sheets from Dollarama here in Canada. I don't know if you have this in the States or not, or wherever you're watching from, but from Dollarama here in Canada. I got this a couple months ago or something like that. I'm not exactly sure when, but these are anything that has colors put onto it, but doesn't have a ton of detail. It's just gorgeous, this pad of paper. Because I really needed to buy more paper, like I needed a hole in the head. But I really liked the colors, and I thought, oh yeah, I can do some Lavinia stuff with that. So that would be really nice. So that's what I'm going to be working with today. So I just took the first sheet here, which kind of has these purples and oranges, a little bit of blue, some pinks and things like that. And that's the one that I'm going to create on. Okay. So I'm going to be using a variety of stamps today. Some of them are stamps directly from Lavinia that I've purchased, and some are off-brand stamps. Yeah, sometimes that's just the way that it needs to be. So, and I'm gonna, because, sorry, excuse me, we want to be able to create a grounding. We need to know where we need to have our ground. What we're going to do is we're going to stamp our main focal image first. She's going to go first. So the one that I'm using, this is a off-brand stamp set that are riff-offs of Lavinia. This is Zamira here. She's this beautiful, kind of like a muse or this mystical fairy. And then I've got a couple of dragons. So I'm going to essentially recreate mostly. I mean, it's really difficult to get everything perfectly the same. But I want to the best of my ability, be able to recreate what I had done on the previous card there. So using my acetate, you can see this is kind of where I want to have her. I'm going to put a castle up here in the background. So I'm going to have some mountains. I want the castle to look like it's farther away, and the Zamira, the woman here, is going to be closer to me. So I want her, so she's going to be nice full stamping, and then we're going to do second generation or a lighter color of ink to get the castle at the back. Okay, so that's what I'm going to start with. And I'm missing a shade of ink. That's interesting. Okay, so but today what I want to start with then is I'm still just going to start with my black ink, and I'm not using my stamp platform. I've got some paper here. I love using these. These are old sheets that I get from 12 by 12 scrapbooks that come out, and they always have these sheets inside the protective sleeves. I used to throw them away until I started doing this. I was like, that it just works great. So I have a nice little bit of paper here that my stamp will be able to bite into. And then as you can see, I use these a lot for blending, gives me places where I can stamp off, everything like that. And but in order to help you see what I'm doing, we're going to start with a nice clean sheet today. Okay. So I'm going to be stamping with VersaFine Clair. This is a pigment ink. Anytime you're using silhouette type stamps, and really if you want an incredible result with a sentiment stamp, I highly recommend using a pigment ink. This one in particular, what's really great about it is that it has like a glycerin, which is almost like an oil, so it really clings to your stamp. So you get this really great cling, crisp, sharp edges to your stamp. And then when you put it onto your paper, when it transfers from your stamp to your paper, you get a really nice, crisp image. And usually, if you've done your job well, you get a really nice saturated look. So what I'm doing here now is I'm just inking up my stamp, and I'm tapping this down, and I'm moving it all over my stamp. I'm moving and making sure that I'm hitting my stamp with different parts of my stamp pad. Okay. Now, sorry, I had to grab a baby wipe here because I got a little schmutz on the side of my stamp block here. So I'm just going to clean that up so I don't end up with that on my paper. But I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it here, but you can. There's a glossiness. There we go. There's a glossiness, so I can see where my ink has stamped or has transferred from my ink pad to my stamp. And that's what I need to do, is I want to make sure that that has a really nice coverage. Okay. And I'm going to go here and stamp. Okay. Now I don't need to do chest compressions. I don't want to push this, especially because these are just a silicone stamp. It's an inexpensive stamp versus this one here, which is the actual one from Lavinia, which is photopolymer. So it's really thick, really, it's a little harder than the silicone ones. When you use a chest compression, when you push too hard on your stamp, what ends up happening is you flatten your stamp, which then spreads it out a little bit. So if it's not such a big deal for a silhouette like this, but some of her hair, because she has quite detailed fine hair, or the ribbons hanging off of her dress, if I were to really push this down, I would spread that. And so instead of it being this nice fine detail, it would become thicker. If I was stamping a sentiment, and let's say I had a T or an I, so that's a really straight line. And if I were to squish it down or do chest compressions and push too hard with my stamp, trying to get a good transfer, what happens is then I spread that out in a certain area. So instead of getting a really nice line like this, you get like where it kind of curves out, or it'll bulge in the center or something like that. That's not what I want. So, and this is a pigment ink, so it does not absorb into our paper. So we want to take our time to allow for the friction of it sitting from our stamp onto our paper, for it to transfer from there, so that the paper has time to interact with the ink, so that the ink will, through friction, come off of our stamp and go onto our paper. Okay, pigment ink does not absorb into the paper, it sits on top of our paper. Okay, so I'm going to pull her up. Excellent. Okay, so I've gotten a really good impression, a really good stamped image that I'm quite happy with. Okay, there's a couple of areas. Let me see here. I'm going to get a little closer to Sean. So she's fairly solid. You can just see right down here at the edge of her dress where there's a few spots where it looks like it's a little white. So if I was unhappy with that, it's not too bad. Oh, and there's a slight line right here, right about her butt. So I'm going to take a Sharpie. Okay. So a permanent ink. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go along here and I'm just going to do a couple of little dots and just color that in just slightly. I don't want to drag my paper like that. I don't want to do like that because you get a shine and it gives you a different tone than what you've used for your ink here. Now by doing this, it allows me to add the shade and to darken up my silhouette without changing the tone of the black in my ink. Okay. See if I can get that into frame for you so you can see where nope, that's not frame. There we go. That's frame. Okay, so where it was a little light down here, I've just added in a few dots, just dotting my pen. And again, right here along her butt area, there was a line where I could see the color of the paper behind her. I don't want to do that. Okay. So now what I want to start with, or the next thing that I'm going to do is I want to start grounding her. Okay, so she is clearly somebody, she doesn't have any wings. She's not flying in the air. She's very clearly, you can see there's a kind of an edge right here. She's very clearly standing on the ground. So that means I need to have some ground for her to stand on. Otherwise, she just looks like she's just hanging out in the middle of nowhere here. Okay. So to do that, I am going to take my Lavinia Acetate Hill masks. Okay. If you don't happen to have these, you can always just tear up a piece of paper, a piece of cardstock like this. Like that. And you can utilize that. Okay, but because I have the masks, I'm going to use the masks today. There's a couple here that you can use. Some of them are a little too harsh for me. Like this one, I might use to do the hill in the background here. As you can kind of see, it's got this really strong mountains and hills here. But for the first one, to get her grounded, I could use, no. These are the two that I generally like the most because they're the most subtle and they give me the most room to play with. So this one, because I do want to have some mountains and things like that in the background, I am going to use this slightly hilly one. And let's see here, what color do I want to pull out? I think goes over here. So I'm just going to test out a couple of colors here. I kind of like that color. This one is the Purple Delight. This one's Fantasia, which is a really deep, deep purple. Maybe kind of vinegar more. Medieval blue. I think I'm actually going to use the Fantasia here. Fantasia, however you like to say that. So to do this, I've got my VersaFine Clair, which is again a pigment ink, and I'm going to pull out my makeup sponges. So you can see here, these are just, I actually just got these from the Dollar Tree, and I just have a variety of colors in the ones that I like. I just keep them in my, got this from my dentist. So I really don't need pencil cases very much, but it works really great to keep all of my sponges together, and they make a mess on the inside of my pencil case rather than everything else that I'm traveling with, so which is nice. Okay, so I've got my ink here, I've got my sponge ready with that. Now, where do I want to have her? Actually, I'm going to turn this a little sideways so that you can see. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking my my mask and I'm kind of finding an area where I think I can put where her feet will be, and I can have a little bit of a hill here. Just checking to see what I like. And I'm going to take my mask and I'm going to drag down. So I'm going to put a little bit of ink, not a lot, and I'm going to test out. See, that's quite a bit of ink on there. So I'm just going to rub off a little bit. And I'm going to go along this edge here, and I'm going to start on the mask. And you always want to start on the mask, and you're going to flip or pull downwards. We start on the mask because we want the color, we want to build our color up gradually. Okay, so although when you're doing this, you want to hold your paper too, that helps. Hold your mask, hold your paper. I'm actually going to tilt that down a little bit. Okay. So, and I'm just going to continue to move it along the edges here, just like this. And if I want, I can pick that up and see, how do I like that? Do I want that to be a little bit deeper? Sure, why not? Let's make it a little deeper. What the heck here, hey? I'm going to take a little bit more ink. Again, I'm going to stop, just dust it off here a little bit, and I'm going to go right along the edge here. And I am dragging that down all the way. Like you can see here where I'm starting to build up a little bit of white off the, or purple off the edge of my card. Will when I move it here. So I'm just going to pick this up, and I'm going to move this. You can see I was dragging it off the edge because I wanted to be able to get a little bit, I want it to look like there's brown. I need to cover my background a little bit, not a ton, but I do want it to be off of there a little bit, giving it that shading. Now, I'm also going to take my sponge. I'm not adding any more ink to it. And I'm just going to drag it, a little circular motion, just a little around this edge here. I just want to soften this harsh mask area that I've used. Okay, so that's the first one. Now, I'm just going to wipe that off so I'm not dragging my ink onto another area here. Now, in our example, if I just stick the example, here it is. Okay. In the example, you can see that I have some other areas. So we have the main grounding here, and then I've got another hill here and another one here, another one in the back there. So I'm going to add in a couple more areas. So still using my mask. And then come in here. And you can do these at different angles. They don't all have to be the same. And I'm not adding any more ink for right now. I just want to see what I end up with. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm bringing it right to my figure here. I don't want to go past her because she's in front. So she's blocking, and then I'm going to come to the side here of her. She's blocking my viewpoint of the mountain behind her. She's standing on this one. So this one and my figure here are the closest to my eyes. The ones behind her, she would be standing in front. I wouldn't be able to see them. Imagine she's a tree in front of this thing. You can't see that, right? So you see how that forces our perspective, that forces our eye to see in 3 dimensions, even though it's only a 2-dimensional item, right? So we've got the foreground. Now we're building our background. Okay, so I want to do a couple more back here. I think I'm going to do another one, maybe like this, this way. Yeah. And again, I haven't added any more ink to my stamp or to my sponge here. Okay. I'm just going to add just a light coloring. Yeah. Doesn't need to be harsh. We want it to be gentle. You can see off in the distance. So I'm just going to give my stencil here a quick wipe. Probably not going to get all of it, which is okay, but I do want to make sure that I'm getting some of it, because with my luck, I tend to pull these things out and then it's like, oh, shoot, I didn't clean the darn thing. Okay, so now I've got this really heavy duty where you can see all of the mountains and everything like that. So I want to, these much bigger mountains. I want to bring that here, and I'm holding onto my paper underneath, pushing down on my mask. I haven't added any more ink. to my sponge. There we go. What do we think? And so I've left open here, like I didn't bring in a ton of color. I want the most color down here. I want my deepest tones to be at the bottom because this is further away. So anything that I make deep, dark, intense is going to be really close to the eye, first level. Okay, anything that I make lighter and using lighter inks, lighter colors is going to be further away from the eye. And that's what I've done here. Right. So that away, and I'm going to give this acetate a little quick clean here. Now I'm actually going to use, this is the castle that I'm going to use. And you can kind of see here, what I want to do is I shouldn't have been using, sorry, I'm teaching you bad habits. We don't want to use the stamp because we never know how well we've cleaned it or if somebody else used it and it's not as clean. What I want to do, so I'm going to use my acetate to see where I'm going to put this. So I want to put this right in and around here. But what I want to do is you can see, I don't know if you can see that behind the acetate, but you see where this hill is. What I want to do is I want this to look like it's coming up from behind the hill. So I'm not going to get an entirely clean stamped image here. I'm going to have this mask. I want this area to be masked off so that I can stamp that. I'm going to stamp it in this same color, but I want to do second generation. I don't know where my gray ink went to, so I'm going to have to try and find that. But for today, we will be fine just doing this. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. Okay. Trying to have the turrets at least somewhat straight. They don't have to be perfectly straight, but they should be somewhat straight. Castle may have been built in the medieval ages, but we're hoping that it's still, standing. So it does need to be somewhat straight. Okay, so I'm inking up my stamp here. Okay, so there are two ways that I could do this. I could, so I'm going to stamp off first. So I just dropped it, so I got to re-ink. Let's see how bad did that. Do as a second generation. So you see how light that comes out? That's kind of the impression that we're looking for. You can still see it even from the distance of the camera. This one's really intense. This one's a little darker. Okay. So if I wanted to, what I could do is in order to get that kind of line, I could simply wipe my stamp. So there's still some ink on there. Stamp it like this. And you can just see the faint outline. Let me see if you can actually see that. See how I wiped the stamp off? And so now I'm missing that door area. I don't need to have that door area on there. The other thing that I could do is just lay a mask right here-ish, like that, and stamp down for that. That's probably what I'm going to do. That way then I can get a little bit closer to the edge of the hill. So quickly stamping off here. And I do want it to match up to this hill, but I want it to look like it's coming from behind the hill a little bit. So I'm just going to mask that area off. I'm going to bring this in here like so. And I'm going to give that a minute. Just push down. Again, we're not doing chest compressions here. We're just letting it rest for a moment. Even though it is second generation, I do still want a fairly decent coverage there. Okay. Now my mask went a little too far. Looks like I moved it a little bit, but that's okay. So to fix that, what I'm going to do is I can bring this hill up to there. How do we do that? Everybody, a lot of people get to this point, they're like, oh my God, I messed up. I buggered up my stamping. No, we haven't buggered up anything yet. We're still far, far away from being done. I'm just going to put my stamp on here so I don't lose it on my acetate. Okay, put that to the side. And we're going to use, was it this one? Who's this one? So let's pull out this guy here. So we're going to bring back in our sponge. And we're going to find, let's just do this, like that. We need a little bit more ink on this one, but not a lot. So I want to make sure that I'm dabbing it off and flicking off. That one's actually a little deeper than I intended, but that's okay. I can smooth this, make it look like it's got a little bit of cloud. Okay. And I didn't get a perfect stamped impression. I'm not sure if you can see that right here. I'm gonna get it in frame there. But I didn't get a perfectly stamped impression right here. It doesn't look like the tower or the turret goes all the way down. That's okay, because we're not finished. We're going to be bringing inks in to focus on our main focal image here, which is obviously going to be our lovely woman. Okay, so I've got now, just going to soften this edge here just a bit. A little harsh. There we go. Okay. So now we've got our woman in the front and our castle in the background. We've kind of forced and tricked our eyes a little bit. So it looks like it's a couple mountain ranges over, a couple hills over. And that's what we're looking for. And again, we're going to clean this so that I don't go and stick something on it. Oops. Okay. Move that out of the way for now. Now, the next thing that I want to do is, you can see here that she's got her hand up. I actually want to put something in her hand or make it look like something's going to land in her hand. And for that, I love this particular dragon. It's just adorable. But look at, if you could, so this is my acetate. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this particular dragon almost looking like he's going to land in her hands. Okay. So we're going to put that in here. And this particular dragon is at the same perspective as her. He's going to land in her hand. So we want that to be on the same dimensional plane. So that means same color that I stamped the woman in, or Samara, I'm stamping this dragon in. Great. And you can see, I can see where it's got the highlight of all of my ink on there, because I'm winging it here. I'm not using a stamp platform. So I can look over my block. Sorry guys, my head might get in the way here, but I do want to try and have that look like he's almost landing on her. I'm going to have a little bit of distance in between the two of them. And I'm going to let this rest here for just a couple moments. There we go. My baby wipe disappeared. What the heck? Okay, cleaning off the first dragon. Put that one to the side. Okay. So there we go. You can just see just a slight bit of distance in between her hand and the dragon. Okay. Now, I have a couple more dragons here. If we were to do this one, okay, that one right there, let's pull it off before I go and stick it down in case it's got ink on it. So if I really wanted to, what I could do is in a really light color, make this guy. Yeah, let's try that out and see what happens. It's just paper, right? So I'm going to take this one. Okay. I want it to look like I've got a couple of different dragons floating in the background, like aiming for the castle here, right? But I want them to be way in the distance, flying up high, but way in the distance. So now I'm going to use Purple Delight. Push that edge there. And I'm going to stamp off twice, actually. Once and twice. And this one, I'm going to go right across my castle. Actually, I'm going to go right across here. Okay. So it's really, really faint. You can just sort of see the outline of that dragon across there because he's really far in the distance. So that's okay. That was what I wanted. And then the blue. So we do want it to look like there is a dragon coming home to roost. So this one, I want him to be at about the same level of the castle. So that means I stamped it off once when I was stamping the castle. So I'm going to stamp him off once so that he has about the same. Yeah, so that he has about the same level of saturation in the ink. Don't know why I'm doing this. Sorry about that. But I wanted to have the same level of saturation as the ink of when I stamped the castle because I want it to be at the same depth or dimension. There we go. To the side. So I'll pick this up. We're getting a little busy over here at the edge here, but there we go. So you see how he has about the same level of saturation. So this dragon here has the same level of saturation as our castle. So it looks like this dragon is really close to the castle. He's coming home there versus these guys who are right up in our face kind of thing. They're the first thing that we're seeing. That's what we want. Okay. So now I want to add a little bit of foliage around the sides here. And to do this, what I'm going to use, the one that I'm actually, that's not true. What I'm going to start with, sorry, is the moon. I do want to focus just a little bit. So it's, I don't want it to look like a moon, but I do want a light source behind my main focal points here. So to do that, I am going to pull out my moon masks. Now, these moon masks are ones that I created myself just using some simple acetate and a circle, I was going to say circle punch, but it wasn't a circle cut kind of thing. They cut these on crickets or silhouette or something like that. So, but the dimensions or the diameter on this one is 4.5 inches. That one's a little big. I want it to focus more right in that area. I don't necessarily need to bring highlight to the castle back here. So these guys are a little big. So let's go to one of these slightly smaller ones. I taught a class last weekend using these, and I think I may have left it behind somewhere. Okay. So using this mask here, I'm not sure how much of this you can see, but I can get most of the dragon's wings. Essentially what I want to focus is I want to try and bring my focus or the highlight to their faces here, because this is the area where it looks like these two have a relationship, right? He's either going to land in her hands or she's going to feed him something, or she's releasing him up. Oops, sorry, releasing him up into the air. I'm a little carried away with my hands, creating a story with my little fairyland here. Anyway, so, but what I want to do is this is the important part of my piece of art here. I want to focus and bring my attention and my viewers' attention, such as you guys, to this relationship right here. That's what I want to highlight. So I could do a really big one and get all of his wings and all of her dress and everything, but I don't need that. What I want is this, what feels like could be a very intimate moment right here between the two of them, this moment of connection here, okay? So to do that, I'm actually going to use this Purple Delight color again, and I don't, I just usually use one sponge per color. So same way we did with our other masks. I've inked up my sponge using the color that I want, and then I've taken some off, and I'm going to hold my mask and my paper together, and I'm going to simply flick. I'm starting on my mask, and I'm going outwards and just flicking. And I'm starting with a small or a low level of coverage of ink. I don't want it to be really heavy duty, because I can always go back and add more. In fact, you can see right here around the edges, it's actually a little darker than I would like it to be, but that's okay because I can deal with that. Okay, and I'm going to catch just behind her ribbons of her dress, but I'm not going to drag it over top of her. Because again, she's in front of our light source. The source is behind her coming our way. So she would be in shadow and blocking that particular light source. Okay. There we go. Now that's going to draw your eye. I'll turn this right side up for you guys here. There we go. That's going to draw your eye immediately into that area, right? All of a sudden, it just highlights it for you. Okay. Let's clean off that mask. So know what happens. Okay. So I'm going to put my cover on that because we all know I'm going to stick my finger in it if I don't. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of foliage because we're here in the trees, right? So this is, or sorry, we're in kind of the mountain areas. We've got some mountains in the background here, some foothills kind of in the foreground. So what else do we need? Well, we need to add some foliage because she ain't going to be there all by herself. There's going to be some stuff around. Now, if I want, I can come in. So I could do like this. Yeah, actually that'll work really well. So I'm just playing with my mask here because I don't want to have to, like again, I don't know how well I have cleaned off my stamps before, but I want to try this out and see, do I like this? So I can get this tree right at the same level of where this grounding is right here. Bring that in, stamp, and then I'm still showing, yeah. I don't, and probably what I'll do is I'll try and remember to wipe off this particular branch right here so that it's not poking her in her hair, because that's going to be at one level. So let's do that. Here. So that's going to be this side. Yes. Okay. So I'm not using a huge block because I don't need to ink up all of this because it's just going to be sitting on this edge. So the color that I'm going to use for my tree, I think I'm actually going to use this medieval blue. Okay. And I'm going to, so this particular tree is called the tree of, just a minute, I think it's the tree of dreams. Yes, tree of dreams. This one is an actual stamp from Lavinia. So this is a tree of dreams. They also have one called the tree of, oh, no, tree of wisdom. So this one, you can see the beautiful details on this particular stamp. It's got all of these really beautiful ribbons that are wrapped around it. So this is the tree of dreams. The tree of wisdom actually has ribbons and cutouts that go up and down on it. They're both really, really beautiful, well carved and designed and created stamps. Okay, so now I'm looking, okay, I'm gonna be positioning my tree right about there. And I wanted to remember to wipe off this particular branch right here so it's not poking her head. So I'm just going to take my baby wipe and I'm going to take off a little bit of that ink right to the join of the tree. You can see here, I've taken my ink off right up off of this particular branch. So it's just got that one going to the side there instead, which will make it somewhat easier to make it fit within my scene. This. Okay, let's stamp. Go. So now we've got some foliage. So we've got some tree here. Okay, still grounded at the same place where she's at. Off a little bit. And I don't know. Let's play with the acetate. I don't think I want to bring in another one here because it's a little big, right? Like if I were to bring this in here, it's going to cover my castle in the distance. So I don't necessarily want that. What I could do, however, though, is stamp right here. So it makes it look like we have some in the background. The other thing that I could do is change of the tree, because this is a very big tree. That's one of the reasons why I love it, because it does help to have a little bit of perspective on the tree. Some of the trees get a little too short. So I'm going to play with this set of spring trees here and see if that might work better. This is a new set. I haven't ever played with these before. So these photopolymer stamps are incredibly sticky to their acetate. So you want to peel them off quite carefully. So now what I could do is do like this. And just slightly off to the side, have them coming up from below, and then another set that could add here in a second generation. I think I kind of like that. Okay, so I do want to change up the color that I used, because this is a different tree. So I'm going to put the medieval blue aside. And I think I'm going to play with the bluebell. Let's have a look. Yep, bluebell. Okay. Oops. So this is a brand new stamp. I haven't used it before, so I want to make sure that it's inked up really well. Because again, I'm winging it without a stamp platform here, right? So I'm just going to go in here because I over inked on some of the sides. I want to make sure that I'm cleaning that up. Now again, remember, full strength means that it's going to be something that's in the foreground. So it's coming at us. So that off there. Now I could add on here in the second generation, I think. Yeah. Play with that now. And I think I want to do a first generation just down just the tips here. I'm just going to angle my stamp just a little bit. So that's the other thing to keep in mind too. Just because you have these full stamps does not mean that you need to use the full stamp. If you only get one or two stamps, like you get a tree and then you get a flower or something like that, you can use different edges of those, each of those stamps to give you different looking foliage. Okay, so I could have come in like this and just done things like that. I could have come in with, let me just stick this down here so I can finish my thought. Okay. So when I'm looking at the Tree of Dreams here, what I could do is if I didn't want to have the full stem of this thing, I could come in and just utilize that. So I could have a tree. Okay, let's do this on some black, on some white here. So I could have a tree like this, but then I could also come in. I don't need to have, so I could have a tree, and then I could stamp another tree like this, and then one in the distance like this, or I could come in from the top and just have the branches. There's a, oh, what's it called? Not a starfish. A seahorse. Sebastian the seahorse is a gorgeous, gorgeous stamp, and I love to use him. But I like the back of him because he's really spiny and things like that. So I'll often, to edge the side of my card and stuff like that, I'll use the back side of him. So I'll stamp him full image and then use the back side to add depth detail because he looks, this is the wrong side of this thing. His features that they drew or that they carved onto the back of his um, spine look like coral. Well, where would a seahorse be? He would be in and amongst the coral. So, and you can see with this particular stamp set here, it actually came with two other little stamps. So those are actually to create leaves if I wanted to. But I'm kind of liking this area where I can just kind of see through it. I don't actually want to add any more leaves to it. And if you wanted to add leaves, it could look like, let's see here, I think I still have that example here. Yeah. So you can see here where she's got leaves from the tree. Looks almost like an ivy coming down or some moss or something like that. Okay, so I've essentially finished with my stamping. Okay, so my stamping is all done. Now what I want to do is I want to bring in my focus, and then we're going to finish, we're going to do the finishing details. So because I have used this particular color here for doing my moon, I think that's what I'm actually going to do to edge the card as well. Yeah. So this is the Purple Delight. Oops, sorry guys. Just trying to move my sleeve there. Sorry about that. Let's see, can you still see? There we go. All right. So I'm going to ink up my sponge just a little bit. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to catch all of these edges and I'm going to darken up the edges. And as we're going around the edges, just bringing in that color. If I wanted, I could change some colors on here too. Like I could have used a blue, like I could have used the Warm Breeze, which is kind of like a tealy color to highlight this. But I just, this all just seems to be working with this background. You don't have to use colors. You notice I did my trees in blues. Well, here in, you know, our planet, our earthly realm right now, you don't often see too many trees in blue. But in your fairy realm, who knows what color the trees are, what color the sky is. Okay. So again, because we've darkened up our images here, the sides, now we're bringing again, so we have these details on the side where we're creating that depth, but we want this again to be our focus. And in order to do that a little bit more, what I want to do is I now want to darken the four corners. So, and to do that, I'm going to use the Medieval Blue. I'm just going to add a little bit more ink to my sponge here. And I'm just going to darken up these four corners. Okay. By doing this, so because I'm making if you were making a circular card, you wouldn't necessarily need to do this because it would already be circular, right? But in order to, again, bring your eye or force the eye to where you want it to go, what I'm doing here is I'm helping to create or make my four corners kind of disappear. I want everything to be more circular, to be highlighted and matching. So we have the circle in the center, then we bring this out to the color that is now circled in the center, and then we take those four corners off by darkening them. So even if you were to call it good right here, just say, oh, I'm super happy with that, because that is a beautiful, beautiful card. However, for those of you who know me, we know that green likes a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And I didn't pull out a white one. Pull out a white chocolate. Okay. So that one's not working. Put that one to the side because maybe I'll actually remember to get rid of the one that doesn't work. There we go. That one's working. Okay. So now in order to add highlights and to start to, again, create and make sure that our main figure here starts to look more 3D, I want to bring the light source from behind her and edge her. okay, and possibly parts of the dragon as well. So you can see here where when the stamp was created, there are, let me get this up close here. You can see here, nope, you can't see that there because I'm not in frame. So right where the wing is right here, there's a space where I can see the moon or the colors behind it. That is actually a space where they have created that we can make a light reflection there. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to highlight with some white, just on the areas where the light would touch. Okay. So some people find that the gel pen is a little too much. If it's a little too much for you, put your finger on it, and then you'll end up with a little bit more of a gray tone. Still wanting it to be lighter than what your color is behind, because the light is what we're looking to do. We're trying to trick our eye into seeing into 3D versus the 2D of what we're actually creating. So I'm just taking my little gel pen here, catching all of these little areas, just a couple of the highlights. There'd be some highlights on his claws, on the tops here, on the tail, along the back where some of these are. And some of these white details are fairly subtle until you get like right up close to them. Okay, so I'm going to hold that up so you guys can see some of those. Get it in. Okay. So you can see where the white is, but when you're from far away, you don't necessarily see all of that. Get into frame, Hickory, and backing it up. There we go. Okay, so you're not necessarily going to see all of that. So now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to catch where her hand is here. Catching her arm. If you don't like using the gel pen, that's fine. You don't need to use a gel pen. You could use a pastel. You can use a white pencil crayon just to add those shades and highlights. Okay, so I'm going to highlight her bust here and down to the arm and finger. I'm also going to catch her back, her butt. Okay, a little bit of her dress along here. Front of her dress. Okay, now I think what I want to do is, because I'll also do some white in through her hair. And this is, you're never going to be able to follow all of these little tendrils here. But I just kind of add a few squiggles. Because again, this is something where you're seeing the light through it. So I want to catch that. Okay, so I've got one fairly heavy duty one there. Yes. But depending on your particular subject, sometimes I also like to catch a little bit of gold. Or I also have this really cool coppery brown color, which depending on which color of hair I decide my particular fairy has, because now it's going to catch some gold highlights. And I'm going to dab that off because I don't want it to be full. And then where her ribbons are, the ribbons for me are going to be gold. So there's these ribbons around her body that seem to come off of her dress. And then there are also, you can't quite see them, but there are these beautiful ribbons that are just kind of wrapped around this tree here. So I want to add some gold in there. Okay, all right. Now, the other thing that I like to do is I like to highlight my light source. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. You can use this great little, which is like a clear, is this the silver one or is it not? This is my clear jelly roll. Nope, this is the clear one. Okay, sorry. I don't know why I pull that one out all the time. That's the silver one. This one is a clear, so it goes over top. So now what I'm going to do is in the same area of her hair, I'm just going to drag in a couple of these glittery highlights in this area where the dragon would land. I also want to come and catch some of his wings. I want the hair, not the hair. I want the sun to look, or the light source to look like it's glistening off of my dragon, because this is the magical guy, right? Like that. Should feel them around here. Now, the other thing that I could do is I could then circle or go around my light source. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is using a wink of Stella, same thing. The other thing is using a quickie glue pen and a little bit of glitter. But I have a few other steps that I want to finish first, just to make sure we're taking this from, wow, I can't believe you did that, to, oh my goodness. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull out my black. These are Inktense pencils, but they're by Derwent, so they're kind of like a pastel-ish kind of, they're a pastel-y type pencil crayon here. But because they've got a bit of pastel to them, I can kind of smoosh them a little bit. But a plain old pencil crayon would work as well. So I'm taking my darker brown here, and I'm just going to add in. So this particular tree on this side has, you can see here, some open areas on it. So I want to add in a little bit of color. Okay. So I'm just following some of the branches here. And I'm going in between the areas where the gold is. Kind of actually smushing the gold a little bit, which is okay. I don't mind that a little bit. Okay. So and all I'm doing, and I'm going to take my finger and just kind of smudge that a little bit. So I'm just coloring that in so that that's a slightly more solid. Okay. Now, if you are not a fan of using the white jelly pen, okay, what you can do is you can use a pastel or a pencil crayon or something like that, and you can go in and add a few light sources like this. Okay. So the light would be reflecting off of his wings a little bit like that. Okay. And I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to buff that just a little bit. Okay. And here you have this and highlight the body shape there. Okay. I'll bring that into focus here so you can see. Yep, there we go. Okay, so I'm just adding a little bit of depth and dimension. I'm going to highlight her bust a little bit, and as well as her backside. Okay, those areas where your flat stamp would actually have some light or a fold in her skirt, or again, this is just to create that illusion of light and dark, because light and dark is what gives us depth and dimension, right? Okay, that looks like there's a slight fold right there. Right. Yeah, like that. Okay. Yeah, so that's my, let's turn it the right side. I'm not sure why this is filming backwards for you guys, but you can see there where I've added some folds to her skirt. You can clearly see it now looks like it's got pleats in it. Let's see if I can get that a little closer. There we go. Okay. Now, the last thing for this particular thing that I want to do in terms of grounding is if the light source is behind these two, they would be throwing a shadow. So I'm going to take my black pencil crayon or pastel or whatever you've got, and I'm going to draw along the base here. And I'm just going to shade this in. So I'm going over top of my trees here, and that's okay. This tree here as well would also have a shadow. So I'm going to drag that down here, just like that. And I'm going to buff that in. Okay. Our dress has a little bit of a shadow to it here. This tree is going to have a shadow. I want that to come over this way. Okay. Now it looks like you can clearly see here, right there, she's throwing a shadow because her light source is behind her. So her body would throw a shadow. So for the dragon, I'm going to put one right here because he's at this level. He's not back here, even though he looks like he's further back. His shadow would be thrown here because his light source is behind him. Okay. So I'm just going to do a little bit right here. Just like that there. I'm going to buff that in. And then I'm also going to do just a slight, not a lot, right like that. So even though our castle is behind the mountain, okay, it would still be throwing a bit of a shadow on the one in front of it because it's this huge building, right? So, and just right down here, you can see where I've put in that little bit of a shadow for where my dragon is. I left a little bit of light in between because the light would still show in between them because he's at a different height than her. But I do still want to have, coming in there, a little bit of shadow. So I've got the shadow right over here for the tree. I've got the shadow for Zamira, for my woman here, and a little bit of shadow for my dragon. And then up here, right here, I have just a little bit, very faint shadow for my castle. Okay. So with my clear jelly roll pen here, this clear highlight one, I do want to go in because there is going to be some light sources here on my little castle. So I'm going to highlight the eaves and a little bit of this, because this would be, it's off in the distance. Let's say it's in a fantasy, if you were watching a Disney movie that was being taped or not taped, drawn, right? Like if it was a cartoon or something like that, there would be this faint glow or magic about this particular building in the background. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shine in the windows and just making it look like sun is hitting all of these little eaves, all of the little windows. You could actually put little bits of gold in the windows if you wanted to, but I'm imagining that this thing is quite a bit further in the distance, so you might not actually be able to see the light coming from it. That, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that, but see if we can get the eyes. Oh yeah, see, there we go. You can catch just how it's glowing back in the distance, right? So we got a little bit of glow on our dragon here. Now, I also want to add a little bit of perfect pearls. I'm using gold. So because she's got gold, actually, I think I want to use bronze. Decisions. Okay. Maybe we'll use both. So I'm going to take my quickie glue pen. You can use any kind of glue. The better ones, though, to use are ones that will dry tacky. Okay. So I'm going to go with this, make sure my glue pen is working. There we go. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to catch, again, I'm just going to catch a few places where there's some light here. I'm going to get, my dragon would have some scales, would he not? So I want to and I would also like to think that I'm going to have a little bit here in the trees, just because of the ropes that went with it here. But I'm really just catching and just doing a funny little line here, wherever it's kind of catching my eye-ish. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the gold to start with. Okay, so you can see these are Perfect Pearls by Ranger. And I'm just going to, these have been on the market for years and years and years. You probably have them in your stash and either used them years and years ago or have forgotten you had them. Okay. I'm just wanting to add just a skosh of highlight here in the gold. Okay. Just to help bring out that little bit of the gold in my tree. This tree of dreams is a very magical tree. I'm gonna wipe that off, and then I want my dragon. That one's gonna have a little bit of this bronzy color for his scales. Okay? So, and I'm just gonna pick up just a little bit out of the lid. Don't need a lot, just a little bit. Okay. And close these up. Now, these particular items, if you're using Ranger Perfect Pearls, you don't need to set them. As soon as they're attached to the glue, it sets itself. So you don't have to worry about that. But so we've got a few scales on the dragon. We've added just a little bit, I'm coming in there, a little bit of gold highlight, some more on the tree there. Now for my moon, because I can't help, I was super impressed that I was able to resist with the last class that I did. But this class, I'm going to be adding some glitter with the moon. Yep, I'm adding some glitter with the moon. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm just going to kind of catch the outline of where I did the masking, right? So whether it's a moon or it's a sun or a light source, whatever you want to call it here. And I'm not going to go, I'm going to skip the areas where the branches are coming through, same thing where her body breaks it, because the source, again, the light source is behind those particular items. Okay, so see where these little twigs are? Obviously, I'm not going to stick my glue in there. His wing is going to be, whatever this dragon is, their wing is breaking the circle or the highlight of the moon. This is a first generation stamp, so that means that it's closer than us. It's clearly in front of the moon here. The moon is not glowing from behind it. It's clearly in front of it. So I'm going to let that break where I'm putting the glue. There we go. Okay. So the glue that I'm going to use, the glitter that I'm going to use is the Vintage Shimmer by Lavinia Stamps. This is an eco glitter, so it will eventually break down. It won't sit in the oceans and whatever. I know a lot of people are concerned about glitter and it cluttering up and not breaking down, whatever. So, but in each of these pots of glitter, they have multiple levels. So there's a microfine and then a fine, and then there's a chunky in each pot. So when you pour it out here, you're going to get the 3 different levels of glitter. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to put that to the side here. Put my glitter back in here. You guys were watching I don't know if it was in that last video or if it was in the one that I taped and then had to retape because I made because I don't know. I don't think I had a voice recording on it or something. Something was weird on it anyway, so I had to redo the video. Yeah, and I ended up having my glitter and I ended up dumping it all over every place. So because you can see here where our perfect pearl, or sorry, where our Versamark is still wet, there are still areas where it is clinging to our image here. So I'm just going to take it in my garbage can, give it a slight flick, which will help take off some of the glitter. But not gonna lie, that's never really been a problem for me, having too much glitter. So this is going to be our project for today. So we've got our images in the foreground here, which is our woman, Zamira here, and the dragon. So they're very clearly based on how we have shadowed them and how we have grounded them. They're very clearly in the foreground. Then we have some mountains and hills in the background. We have off in the distance, oops, sorry, there. We have off in the distance our castle and our other dragon heading home. They're at the same level, but we have brought the focus and the focal point to this moment between the dragon and Zamira. Okay. So that's going to be the class for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it makes sense. If you do have any questions or concerns or comments, like how come your camera is upside down and you have to keep flipping things for us? Perfectly valid question. I'm not sure why I ended up filming like that, but it's where we're at right now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, please like if you did enjoy it. Comment, subscribe. I would love to hear your comments. I do make an effort to respond to everybody. Constructive criticism and feedback is welcome as well. And if you do have anything that you would like to learn about, again, please put it in the comments and I'll see what I can find or see what I've done, and maybe that'll be our next class. So there we go. All of that beautiful highlight and shine. Yeah, I might have to keep this card. I'm really happy with it. Anyway, thanks so much, guys. Have a great day, and we'll talk at you soon. Bye-bye.